My name is Jessin Gibson, and I'm the collections developer for the Memphis Pink Palace Museum. Our speaker today is a lifelong Memphian and a graduate of Memphis University School and Memphis State University. In his experience, he has managed some of the community's greatest assets, including museums, the Park Commission, and that band of ducks in the lobby of the Peabody Hotel. Will you please help me give a warm welcome to our Shelby County historian, Mr. Jimmy Ogle.
Thank you, Jess, and you've been wonderful to work with these last few weeks here. You see here the slide on the screen, our special thanks to our generous sponsor, Vincent Astor, Phyllis Peterson, Erickson Group, University of Memphis Libraries, and Communities and Conversation series at Rhodes College. Our artifact of the day is from the Mississippian era pottery, currently on display in the mansion's Cosset Museum room exhibit. There's our object of the day right there, you know. Last week it was Burton Callicut's paintings. So there's our storytelling, there's our sponsors again, and today we are before there was Memphis. You know, there's a lot of, everybody knows 1819, we're in our 200th year right now, everybody knows about that, but what was here before that time? I was doing a golf tournament up in Middle Tennessee, near Nashville one time, about 10 years ago, and there was Franklin, Tennessee, Traveler's Rest, John Overton's home, one of our co-founders. Well, right up the way was Nashville, the Hermitage, Andrew Jackson. Right up the way was Cragfont, Castilian Springs. I could go see all three homes that are still there from our founders of Memphis. Why not take pictures? The University of Memphis Libraries asked me to come do a program, and so that's what I did it on before there was Memphis, because everybody knows everything else, and that's what this program is built on. So we're going to step back on it. I'd like to thank Memphis Heritage, West Tennessee Historical Society, the Shelby County Registrar's Office, and the Memphis Room at the library. These are their websites you can contact to get all sorts of information and help from everybody. The West Tennessee Historical Society meets on a monthly basis, and these are the 21 counties in West Tennessee they talk about. We'll talk about a few of them here today. Welcome to Memphis, like I always say. That wasn't before Memphis was here, but I'd like to say welcome to Memphis. And we are number 6 on the National Register of Historic Places for listings in the country, behind Washington, Philadelphia, Baltimore, New York City, and New Orleans. We have over 11,000 properties listed here. We're a point of discovery, one of the 3 oldest in the United States, the site of the first river engagement between Europeans and Native Americans in the history of our country. Of course, Hernando de Soto, the Spanish explorer, came wandering through here, looking for the Pacific Ocean. I told you this the other day. Got on those old animal paths, let's say, and found this high piece of ground here on the Mississippi River during the floodwater time of the year. Used to flood 35 miles in that direction. He thought he discovered the Mississippi River because he thought the Ohio River flowed into the Gulf of California, not the Gulf of Mexico. And the earth was flat at that time, so to speak. But that was in 1541, 79 years before the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock. Think about that. Then you look at our roads that we developed now. This system. Again, all our roads are old animal trails. They led to the high bluff to keep their feet dry, whether it's in the Wolf River bottoms or Noncona or St. Francis or Loosahatchee or Hatchie. So Highway 64 is the old stagecoach road. As that developed, Highway 70 came through this way. There's the 4-way there right at Bartlett, and then Highway 70 takes you up to Bristol. Trail of Tears takes you on out to Oklahoma. This is the crossroads of America right here, because the animals years ago were on the high ridges. Poplar Avenue's a high ridge, Lamar's a high ridge, out to the eastern part of our community. Came to this one high bluff right here to get across the river. The Mississippi River drains 41% of continental North America, 31 states, 2 provinces of Canada. And look at that stat, 1.25 million square miles and 250 tributaries coming through here. It's an odd, most meandering river we have. My favorite stat is about the levees and the astronauts. The flood of 27 caused the Flood Control Act of 28 to be passed by Congress, and we started building levees for 10 years there on both sides of the river, the largest project in the history of Corps of Engineers. And it's so big that when the astronauts are descending on Earth from outer space, the first man-made structure they recognize on Earth is the Great Wall of China. And the second is the earthen levee system of the Mississippi River. That's how big it is. One cannot control the Mississippi River, but only container, okay, only accommodator, say. Many nicknames for the Mississippi River: Old Man River, Big Muddy, Mighty Mississippi. Mark Twain called it the Great Sewer. as Mark Twain gets away with. You throw a cigarette butt down in Wrigley Field, it'll make it by Memphis in about 10 days. And the storm drains. So here's some old maps here. This one is a French map from the 1750s. You can kind of see all the rivers they got drawn in there, and no roads, no railroads. Florida's down here. All this is kind of messed up in here, 1750s. Here's a hand-drawn map. Getting down to Fort Pickering, there's Memphis, the Loosahachie River. Here's the Wolf River right here. Well, this is just a hand-drawn map. There's the Mississippi right there. Another kind of old map right here. This is a ribbon map. This is 25 feet long. These are 5-foot sections. I saw this in New Madrid, Missouri. So you can take it from Lake Itasca. We could stand over here and stretch this thing out on the floor, 25 feet long. And that gets you all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico as you put them together end to end. And this is in 1866. That's a long map of the Mississippi River. Here's a cartography map from 1934 to show you where, before we had levees and channels and all that, how the river channels all went all around. And they formed the Oxbow Lakes, like Horseshoe Lake over there, and all up and down the river, and the high bluffs and the earthquakes and the shifting currents and the high water and low water. This is a long map. This kind of shows you the floodplain. It's a good depiction of this is the regular river, but look at the floodplain over there in Arkansas and how flat it is. The sunken land is what it's called. Of course, it starts at Lake Itasca. And back 1832, this is after Memphis is founded, somebody found the source of the Mississippi River way up there. Henry Rowe Schoolcraft, who was a Chippewa Indian guy, and he actually had to combine, a Chippewa had to combine a Latin term and a Greek term to get the name Itasca. That's kind of odd. Veritas for truth, caput for head, true head. That's the true head of the Mississippi River coming down. That's where that name comes from, Lake Itasca. To the confluence there at Cairo, to the mouth there down below New Orleans, about 65 miles north of New Orleans. There's our roads leading out. And now our tributaries and creeks in there. I kind of did a little special thing here. You got the Hatchie, Loosahachie, Wolf River, Nonconnah Creek, Cypress Creek, Gayoso Bayou, and St. Francis River. Now when you look at downtown Memphis, it's kind of shaped like a football. The north and south ends the long end of the football. The east and west is the fat end of the football. So when it rains on Front Street, it'll drain to the Mississippi River. When it rains, it drains to the east down to Gayoso Bayou. Then you go up to the medical center. That all drains down in the Gayoso Bayou. You go over down the hill again, you get Quimby Bayou, then Lennox Bayou, and Harrison Creek, and Overton Bayou, which is Lick Creek going through Overton Park. You got all sorts of bayous coming through there that drain our city out to the north as you go up and down through Memphis. So let's go to this whole drainage basin here that shows you all the various rivers and the river districts that they have in the Memphis District of Corps of Engineers. And I'll talk about a few of them in here. The Hatchie River, this sign is in the West Tennessee Delta Cultural Center up there at exit 56, right behind the McDonald's, where they have Tina Turner's schoolhouse and Sleepy John S's. That's a great stop about West Tennessee. Cotton rivers, all sorts of brochures about all the counties in West Tennessee. And this is the Hatchie River one here. The Hatchie River begins in Union County, Mississippi, flows 238 miles around everything and comes back up into the Mississippi River above Memphis there. Hatchie Men's River, so your river, that's what the name of it is. Never been impounded, channelized, or otherwise modified by human activity to any major degree. It's one of our most natural rivers in West Tennessee. It goes by Bolivar and everything. The Wolf River, 105 miles. It starts over in Holly Springs, goes through 2 states, 4 counties, 11 communities, all the way through down by Frazier there. It's a dead river in the 1970s, and the Wolf River Conservancy got formed. But that's the Wolf River's drainage basin right there, all the way through to the north of Memphis from Mississippi. 552 miles, all these little stats right here you can look at. Holly Springs National Forest is the source. And then by 1997, after all the activities, the Wolf River Conservancy designated an American Heritage River by presidential proclamation. So the great work going on at Wolf River, we got to thank them. Nonconnah Creek, what's Nonconnah Creek? It's just on the other side of the expressway, right? It goes by the Mall of Memphis or whatever. But it's 29.7 miles and drains approximately half of the city of Memphis. The other being drained out to the Wolf River. We had a little earthquake in AD 400. Remember that, Jim? AD 400, the earthquake? And that's what kind of made Memphis kind of rise up before the big earthquake. And that's what made the Nonconnah Creek not go to the Wolf. It came down below that big hump, the highest piece of ground on the Mississippi River. And that's how that got formed. And there is a Nonconnah Creek Conservancy that meets every first Monday night. They're talking about the ecosystem in there and some of the things they found in there, flowers and fossils and everything. It's a really neat group of folks, and we're going to hear more about them in the next few years. St. Francis River over into Arkansas starts at Elephant Rock State Park in Iron County, Missouri. It comes down kind of parallel. It was a parallel river. You know, you get up there going to St. Louis, you got Portage, Open Bay, and places like that. It starts at 1,500 feet sea level, goes between Crowley's Ridge and the river, has a dam there at Wapalelo Lake, goes by Mark Twain National Forest, flows 468 miles down to Helena, near Helena. So it goes from 1,500 feet sea level to 271 feet sea level as it comes down. And the drainage basis is 7,500 square miles. So this is what people were dealing with 500 years before Memphis, is all these little river systems and flooding and all this through it. This little picture right here is out of my camera from the DeSoto County Museum, but I like seeing Fort Pickering on it and Chickasaw Bluffs right there, right at the edge of our state. Here's another old map that I found. Someone had drawn. I don't even have the source for it. Again, this compares. So all y'all know Memphis right now coming down like this, straight from the north, coming through like this. But once upon a time, it came in until the late 1960s like this. From the northwest and curved right here, just like it curves back around like this. So this was the old river channel until we built this bridge. And you couldn't bring the barge tows around that 1,000 feet long through here and try to cut through an 880 foot wide and turn like that with the current. So they took Mud Island here for 4 miles, cut it up, put the western half on the northern half to get above the floodplain. That way the downriver tows come around this way now and get a straight shot through. So our river's been altered significantly in the last 50 years here in Memphis. That kind of shows you a closer picture where all that came through. And see, this was the Wolf River that came all the way down to the 1960s. This was a Loosahatchee that came to right here. Frazier's bounded by 3 bodies of water: Wolf River, Mississippi River, and Loosahatchee River. Buddy McEwen told me that. Frazier, bounded by 3 bodies of water. There's an 1860s map kind of showing you how he's developed. This is a Sherman map. There's a railroad track. And then here's one of the first buildings they have, and I have a friend who just moved from California. Somebody told me I was a historian. He said he wanted to paint a picture. He took that picture and made it look like this. So now he has 10,000 pictures I've seen him of buildings in Memphis that he can paint. Bob McCabe studio. Native Americans in this area. Now we're not going to, this is a Cliff Notes version, folks, but 10,000 years ago, prehistoric Indians, first contact with, like I said, in the 16th century, came from Alaska, coming down through, wandering down to milder temperatures and not getting away from all the snows, coming further southward, nomadic, hunter-gatherers, migrated with the seasons and a movement of the animal herds. That's food source, you know. Chickasaw, Choctaw, Natchez, Tunica, a lot of names. If you go down to Chickasaw Heritage Park, you'll see a statue that represents Native American, Hispanic American, and African American heritage in our community. And there's 19 names of Native American villages on the back of that woman's shawl there, along with some other representations. Everybody's heard of Chucalissa if you lived in Memphis for a long time. Actually discovered in the 1930s on a CCC, Civilian Conservation Corps project. Got stalled out by World War II, came back, and they finished it out. And of course, T.O. Fuller State Park is the first state park east of the Mississippi, named for an African American, a great city leader in the 1900s. Choctaw word meaning house abandoned down there. They were fishers and gardeners. They kind of settled down rather than being nomadic hunter and gatherers. Chickasaw Heritage Park, you would know it as DeSoto Park, right across from the Metal Museum. There's 2 mounds there. There used to be 7 mounds there. They're ceremonial mounds, not burial mounds, there right across from the Metal Museum. Here's some of the images you'll find. Here's some of the native tribes in the area over the years. Again, we're not going to get up to the Trail of Tears. That's after that. It's 1830s. So early explorers, 1541, Hernando de Soto. 1673, Marquette and Joliet came through. 1682, La Salle, he was the first European to go all the way down the Mississippi River. And then Bienville in 1739 came up for Fort Assumption. In 1795, the Spanish Gayoso came up, and that's Fort San Fernando. Again, there's DeSoto's route, wandering all around. Here's DeSoto first, all struck by the Mississippi River is what it says. Now, if you go here, let's say, well, here's some other, where Native Americans, you'd see the Europeans exchange. Of course, that was not really, I mean, there's a lot of animosity in all this, and a lot of strangeness going on, and disease being carried around. And here's some of the first meetings of them here, in depictions, obviously. Here's a nice rendering here. This portrait right here of DeSoto at the Mississippi River is in the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. Have y'all ever been there and seen that? You see all those pictures? It's in the U.S. Capitol. Now, most of y'all probably recognize it. It's on the back of a $500 bill, too. Everybody whip out your $500 bill. I'll give you $10 for it, okay, right here on the spot. How about that? Memphis, in the early times, in the early 1800s, there's no mud island out here where the high bluffs, Wolf River still coming down. There's the Fort San Fernando right there. It's about where the pyramid is now. America's timeline, 1607, Jamestown, 1776, Declaration of Independence, 1783, Treaty of Paris, setting U.S. boundaries, 1787, Constitutional Convention, 1788, ratification of the Constitution, 1791, the Bill of Rights. Tennessee admitted to the Union in 1796, Louisiana Purchase, and then in 1803, a pneumatic earthquake. Those are some big timelines there, but in our area, some of those are the same here. We throw in Hernando through those times there, his exploration, Marquette and Joliet, La Salle, Fort Assumption, the Spanish Fort San Fernando, the treaty, and then the first U.S. flag to fly over this area was October 22nd, 1797, right there where Auction Park is, right a block east of the pyramid. There's our forts, our early forts. We'll go through these real quick here. Fort Assumption, they came up in 1739, the French did, on Assumption days when they actually opened the fort. That's why they call it Fort Assumption. Bienville is the actual last name of this guy with this real long name. Get to the end there. The governor of French Louisiana during a conflict with the Chickasaw Indians. They were trying to establish a fort up here. He brought some 4,000 French and Choctaw allies. You know, the French allied with the Choctaw, the British would ally with another tribe, and they all war against each other. And they built this fort. They lasted about 3 months because that apparently didn't like the humidity or the big mosquitoes here is what I heard. So the next fort, way up till 1795 and 1796, here come the Spanish up. Gayoso comes up. The Treaty of San Lorenzo, Pinckney's Treaty. Spain yields all its rights east of the Mississippi, north of Louisiana, and so the Spanish are out of here. We take over the fort down there they had built. They go across the river and make their own fort on the west side of the river, Fort Esperanza, Hopefield, and we take over their bedraggled fort here. There's a whole lot of slides here about that. I won't leave these up too long. Neither Spain nor France intended for U.S. to annex all this, what we call Trans-Appalachia, everything west of the Appalachian Mountains. So they contended for a while, but then Spain gave up with their treaty down here. The French left in 1803. As a fort, it was never attacked. It was put in a low area down there, the flood zone. And when we took it over, some of the Americans wanted to move it up higher. And eventually moved it up to the higher bluffs, which became Fort Pickering. Our first captain there was Isaac Gein to build Fort Adams. That name was a very important name, our second president, so it got taken down to Natchez. So we went from Fort Adams to Fort Pike. Zebulon Pike, and his son later was Pike's Peak out there in Colorado. A lot of squatters were around. It was a ragtag fort. And then 1803, our country purchases lands west of the Mississippi River. We call that the Louisiana Purchase from the French. So by 1803, the French and the Spanish are out of here entirely. You got those 7 flags on Mud Island. So you got France, Great Britain, and Spain all in here. We're still going to knock it out with the Great Britain. There's the United States flag, and then you got Tennessee, North Carolina, and Confederate later on. So there's the 7 flags of jurisdiction in their years. So it's real important we get up into this time frame right in here. Our first flag flies right here. We're part of North Carolina, and the first territory to become a state, as you see right there. State of Tennessee, you had to have 60,000 people in a state constitution. You heard of the state of Franklin before. That was never formally recognized by the USA. So state of Tennessee in 1796. Named by Daniel Smith of Sumner County out of North Carolina. And the Cherokees were our first inhabitants over there in East Tennessee. So you see these old maps here, how mountainous and the ruggedness right there. Then you go over here to the West Tennessee side and see how smooth it is over here. There's the Tennessee River coming down and going through. Here's New France, Louisiana, and New Spain during that time that became the colonies, you see, these colored maps here. Here are the colonies right here. You still got Indian country right here, 1763. The French and Spanish occupation of North America to 1750. They were all over the place, you see, around in here. So we're getting up to the 19th century. New Madrid becomes the first settlement west of the Mississippi, in the Boot Hill, about 120 miles north. And there's your original 13 colonies. And as we're expanding from north to west across our country, you get to Vermont, Kentucky, then Tennessee. We're number 16, and then we moved westwardly in a balance. A free state, a slave state, a free state, a slave state, northwest, northwest. So you get down to 22, 11 free, 11 slave. The 24th state became Missouri, and at that time, that's when Maine broke off. Maine broke off from Massachusetts. So now we're still 12 and 12. And Arkansas is the 25th state, the second state to get in west of the Mississippi. And then we head towards the Civil War. So 1803, Louisiana Purchase clears the French out of here. We basically double the size of our country, bringing Memphis to a very important part because most of this exploration was done by rivers, all those 250 tributaries, rather than roads or animal paths, you know. And now you're doubling the size of the country. You got to have that western exploration here. Natchez, Memphis, and St. Louis were the jumping off points. That's why you got the great arch there. The Museum of Westward Expansion is what that's underneath there in St. Louis. So we had an earthquake, 1811, 1812, actually a series of earthquakes over a 3 or 4 month period of time. Church bells rang as far away as Charleston, South Carolina. Reelfoot Lake got formed during that time. They said the river flowed backwards. But it just mean like you take your hose and start turning it that way. I mean, the land depressed down and water sunk into the lower land. That's how Reelfoot Lake got formed. But it's a very powerful earthquake. That AD 400 earthquake has already raised up Memphis before that time. And now you got the sunken lands, what we call it over here in Arkansas. And there's some great things to go visit in that sunken land. Here's the John Rice Grant, 1791, I believe it was. At that time, the Indian nations or the Native American nations had all the claims to these lands, but North Carolina was, and especially folks in North Carolina were doing a bunch of land grab, let's say. And they were selling lands to people. John Rice bought that tract right there. John Ramsey bought this one right here. This is like Union Avenue to where the parkways are, basically to Valentine back. That's that 5,000 acres. That's what he bought. And you see the Memphis, early Memphis portion right in there, 1,300 acres of that. He got killed in like 1793. And so John Overton bought the grant. This is the first layout of our city. Again, the pyramid would be about right here. St. Jude, there's the Gayoso Bayou. That's Danny Thomas now underground. Union Avenue right here. Wolf River. Those are your boundaries. 1,300 acres, 362 lots. Lot 53 is the one they're claimed to be where Benjamin Foy got the first lot of whoever back in 1819. So the John Rice Grant, you can see all this right here. A survey was needed. A grant was received by Rice in 1789. Again, that's all unofficial and everything. And Rice carved his initials, JR, on a white oak tree 1 mile south of the Wolf River. You want to go find that white oak tree right now? Well, they couldn't find it either later on. It caused a lot of problems in the 19th century. You can see the boundaries right here. He was killed in 1791. His brother sold the claim to John Overton. And Overton sold his half, all right, for $500. Overton sold his half to Andrew Jackson for $100. This is what gets Andrew Jackson in trouble a little bit later on. I'll show you that in just a minute. Again, there's all the various grants. This is about where Chickasaw, this is about where we are right now. This Edmund Hickman portion right here, that grant. Revolutionary War occurred in that part. We have 19 soldiers buried in Shelby County that fought in the Revolutionary War, got land grants. They're buried various places all around, some in Elmwood. There are the names of all of them right there. It's hard to read on that plaque, so I thought I'd put them all up. I think John Smith's the one buried there in Elmwood. We did a ceremony with him last November for the DAR chapter. 1812, there are 32 veterans of the War of 1812 interred in Shelby County. Here are their names right here. This is a plaque we put up at the Shelby County Courthouse, Judge the Army Beatty Courthouse now in 2013. And we also recognize Isaac Shelby, and we'll come back to that in a minute, a Revolutionary War and a War of 1812 veteran. So here are the names of all the folks from War of 1812. You'll recognize Bunton right over here. Let's see. Tresvant, Nathaniel Anderson helped form what became our Chamber of Commerce. Saffrons is a street name for him. A lot of good names here. Graham. War of 1812. Now this March 15th at 10 o'clock, we'll have a birthday cake for Andrew Jackson there. We'll do a lot of patriotic storytelling, pledges, songs, in Judge Russell's courtroom. This is Betty Gustafson with the War of 1812 Piamingo chapter. And we'll come out around the Andrew Jackson bust, and we'll sit there and sing 8,000 Redcoats, See How They Run to the tune of Three Blind Mice about the Battle of New Orleans. We do it every year in that hallway of the courthouse, all that marble and everything. We're really loud. and see how they, at the very end, it's Andrew Jackson and the Tennessee Volunteers. The Tennessee Volunteers came in. That's how we got our name Volunteers when the Battle of New Orleans in 1815. On Elvis's birthday, by the way. And then we drink Blackberry Fizz, Andrew Jackson's favorite drink. So come join us, 10 o'clock, Friday, March 15th. And at 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock, I'm giving my last 2 courthouse tours that day. It's a great tour because it's a great building. And they're free. So War of 1812 in 3 different theaters, Lake Erie, Chesapeake Bay, Battle of New Orleans, a very benign war. Let's say Canada got its independence. We got what we call a Star-Spangled Banner out of that. We might tell that in the music story. The treaty was signed in December of 1814, but Jackson went on down in January of 1815 and claimed New Orleans. That's what got the British out of here once and for all. That's what I think is the most important war for Memphis, because now America has a right to these lands with no other outside interference. Isaac Shelby was a general in both the Revolutionary War and the War of 1812. Our county's named for Isaac Shelby. And here's some of his roles in the Battle of Kings Mountain. They wanted him to be the, he was the 1st and 5th governor of Kentucky, but they wanted him to be the Secretary of War. He didn't want to do that. So he helped to negotiate some of the lands and the deals. He got a Congressional Gold Medal. At the end of the War of 1812, declined that offer to become the Secretary of War. Counties in 9 states have been named for him. In 1818, with Jackson, negotiated the Chickasaw Cession. We'll get to that in a minute. And then Shelby County was named for him, the first county west of the Tennessee River. So here's the Shelby County in 1819. It was also Tipton County and Fayette County. They didn't break off till 1823 and 1824. It was a big square, and the county seat was in Raleigh up here for the first 40 years before it came back to Memphis because of all the development. James Winchester captured in both the Revolutionary War and the War of 1812 at the Battle of River Raisin. There's James Winchester, one of our co-founders too. So those are Revolutionary War and War of 1812 generals. Now, 1818, this red block right here, that's all the lands west of the Tennessee River. That's about 6.8 million acres of land. Andrew Jackson and Isaac Shelby negotiated this. Here's East Tennessee, here's West Tennessee, here's Chickasaw Nation, East Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, West Tennessee now. 6.8 million acres of land here, ended up being 21 counties. We got for $330,000 or 4.5 cents an acre. Pretty good deal here on installment payments. 20 years, $15,000 each. And then Memphis was quickly laid out by William Lawrence, and Marcus Winchester helped him, the son of James Winchester. These are our 3 co-founders, with Marcus Winchester being our first mayor. James Winchester is the one that named Memphis for Memphis on the Nile River Delta, the similarity there. I said this the other day, we're the bluff city. We're on the bluffs, the high bluffs here, the high dry ground. Shelby wasn't from Tennessee, he was from Kentucky. Peabody was an Englishman. Our first mayor still buried underneath a garage. That's all a bluff. And our 4 original squares were named for their intended purpose. The first, that was Court, Market, Exchange, and Auction. You know where they are, but the first schoolhouse was in Court Square. The first courthouse was in Market Square. The first market was over in Exchange Square. We didn't quite get that right either. There's Memphis kind of getting to be laid out in the middle of the century. I just want to show you again, you still don't have any, you got the bluffs, no Mud Island, no Riverside Drive coming in there yet. The high bluffs made it accessible for the cotton industry to come in there. In the 19th century, we had over 400 sawmills in this area. So we were the hardwood capital of the world. That's what got us on the map, the river and hardwood and then later cotton. Here's about John Overton's. We're going back to Franklin, Tennessee now. There at Travelers Rest. Of the 3 founders, he was the most active in the development. He was not a military guy. He stayed home. He was a great politician, power broker in that part of the state. Always included Andrew Jackson in every one of his ventures. He was 5'3" and bald, married at age 54. Travelers Rest, it's a beautiful spot up there. You go down this little drive right here up to this house, kind of unassuming house. Almost looks like the McGabney house, doesn't it? You get back around behind it, it gets pretty big. Can't take pictures inside either. Not even me. Beautiful house. Andrew Jackson, the Hermitage. You've been there, the Hermitage. Everybody's been to the Hermitage, I'm sure. Some of his stats, of course, he lost his wife before he became president. Of course, they'd gotten married before she was divorced or something like that, too. They had to get that straightened out. But he was, moving on, War of 1812 hero, rose to fame, one of the co-founders, became the 7th president, known for the Trail of Tears as well. There's the Hermitage real quick. Beautiful house, beautiful grounds and gardens. He's buried there as General Andrew Jackson, not President Andrew Jackson. The bust there in the courthouse, the cast on him in 1835 in the White House, is the oldest known bust cast on a sitting president in the history of our country. You'll get to see that. You'll get to touch it on the tour. There it is. The first 4-cent postage stamp was designed after that by a man who has a street name for him right over here. July DeLoach. So it's a beautiful bust there. We'll get on from that. James Winchester and Marcus Winchester, father and son. Born in Maryland. His is Crag Font up there northeast of Nashville. He had 10 children. The last at age 70. Sorry, age 70. You go. He was captured by the British, appointed by President to survey the southern boundary of the line of state of Tennessee, and that comes a problem later on. Gave Memphis his name, by the way, too, and Crag Font because he was on a tall piece of land there. And in 1825, he got out of the deal. This speculation is worse than steamboat building. He didn't like being in the real estate business. The first 6 years, it was real slow, as you'll see. There's Crag Font, beautiful house, beautiful grounds, a lot of furniture there. There's his family tree. And there are the epaulets. I touched those epaulets from the Revolutionary War with my fingernail. I was bad. He let me do it. You get a one-on-one tour there. It's great. Marcus Winchester, again, is our first mayor. He married a woman of color. He got kind of ostracized for that, became the postmaster. Isaac Rawlings, our second mayor, only kept his woman of color and didn't get in trouble for marrying her 200 years ago. I guess we'll talk about that in our bicentennial, won't we? Operated a ferry service, was promoted to postmaster. That was a big deal. And John McLemore later on was our fourth founder of Memphis, kind of, sort of. Later on binds up some of those claims. He's actually buried in Memphis. So let's get on through John McLemore. We're going to run out of time. Some of the early explorers: Davy Crockett, Andrew Jackson, Zachary Taylor, John James Audubon, Meriwether Lewis, Zebulon Pike. Later on, those other guys. Some of the early names: Benjamin Foy, Isaac Rawlings, Samuel Brown. Foy was a Dutchman here. Rawlings, our second mayor at Trading Post. Samuel Brown was our first sheriff. The Carrs ran our first hotel. Patty Mars, our first bartender. You know. So the Rice Grant, real quickly. There's the 5,000 acres. He got it for 10 cents an acre. Jackson purchased his bit for 4 cents an acre. That's a pretty good deal for Jackson, wasn't it? He later sold that for 50 cents an acre, half of it. Woo, he's a good landman, isn't he? Then he later sold the rest of it for 80 cents an acre. He was really profiting, wasn't he? And land finally swapped out for land that's Jackson, Tennessee, and all that. So that's the whole combination of how all that got done as Winchester and Overton got out of the deal. Our streets in that area named by Andrew Jackson, south of Poplar, is the first 5 presidents: Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe. You sprinkle in the 4 markets or parks: Court, Market, Exchange, and Auction. And then north of Poplar is the 3 founders: Winchester, Jackson, and Overton. There's the map right there. Let's get on. Oh, there's another map by Perry Magnus, too, in her book, a children's book. We can talk about this to children sometimes, you know. The 1820 census, here's some of the names. You might recognize some of the people in the census. Some of y'all might be here. They're in alphabetical order for quick assessment. 364 citizens. And then Randolph on our second bluff, kind of a rival at the time, because you're coming downriver, you find a white settlement, you're going to stop. You don't know where the next one is. So Randolph is 40 miles north of us. Why not stop there before coming down to Memphis? It was in competition with us, 40 miles north. Stagecoach, but Overton pointed everything to his development, to the southwest corner. No stagecoach going to Randolph, no postal route, no railroad, no military road. You see what I mean? It all came here, and that's how Memphis outgrew Randolph. And their population went from 54 to 1,000 there by 1830. Randolph United Methodist Church. You can still go up there. This is what it looks like now. That's what Memphis would look like if Memphis buildings weren't here. This is what, that would be Mud Island right there. It's beautiful up there. There's an old A-frame house you can go into. And of course, this is where LaSalle came down and stayed, because they lost Pierre Prudhomme for 9 days. So he got a fort named for him for being lost. And that's like the first European settlement west of the Mississippi because of that mistake. So there's the first bluff right before it, 20 miles north, up where Fort Pillow is, 20 miles north. And this is the modern day Fort Pillow State Park, and this slide right here that's been developed all in this area right here. The third bluff, Meeman Shelby Forest State Park. You got it? First is Fort Pillow, second is Randolph, third is Memphis Shelby Forest State Park, and what a great development. That's our largest state park in the state of Tennessee, over 13,000 acres, bottomland hardwood forest, 20 minutes from downtown. The best place to go in the fall, and you got to stop by Shelby Forest General Store. It's been there since 1934. Just beautiful lanes, all these pictures right here. Just canopied lanes, the lake, the river, the trails. State of Tennessee is going to start putting some money. We've been meeting the last couple of months with TDAC on that. And then what we're doing right now, 2 years ago, our Shelby County Historical Commission was able to form a nonprofit group separate from government and everything called the Rural Heritage Trust of West Tennessee. And we're going to start kicking it off here in 2019, some of our activities in community conversation and connections. It's basically this area from, say, Randolph and Shelby Forest all the way around to Collierville. We're going to get real serious about this. This is a Susan Jones map right here, by the way, a gorgeous map. And we're going to, all these dots you see in here are communities, general stores, country stores, churches, cemeteries, old trails, farms, barns, silos, all this stuff. And we're going to be logging all this and then connecting the dots for people to have driving trails and things like that to visit these great areas in our county. Look at this map, tells you, look at the roads, look at all the white space and all this, look at all the streets in here and all the density here. And then you get over to the delta, and you know, that's flat floodplain right there. So you can see what we're trying to do is not let this encroachment go too far and enjoy the other part of Shelby County. So that kind of gets us to that point. Normally I end right here, but I'm going to do some suggested books on this topic. You know, I did the suggested books last time about general history in Memphis. This is more specific to the time we're in right now. Historic Shelby County, I mentioned that. Let's see. The early families of the Memphis and Shelby County area by Paul Matthews. That's a great one from Descendants of Early Settlers. Historic, an illustrated history of the people and towns. Let's see right here. Let's go right to here. Illustrated history of the people and towns of Northeast Shelby County and South Central Tipton County. That's a long title. It's a 5.5-pound book by Hare, Historic Archives of Rosemark and Environ. What a great group of people we have there. And this beautiful book right here, Tennessee Society, Daughters of the American Revolution. It's only on sale at rare times of the year. And here's the information on that. Legacies of our great-grandmothers and early Tennessee women. And here's the information there on how to get if you want to take a picture of that, or you can just email me and we'll get it to you. And there's that book there. There's Hare, there's Judge McCullough and all the fine folks that put that together. That's a really good historical community there. Early Rivals of Shelby County. Ed Williams' book right here. It's a good little book. There's his last speech. And there I am. I know we're at the very end here. And something I worked on today. Here's the 20 communities. 200 years now. Making Memphis, 200 years of community. Our community opening day here at Pink Palace will be Sunday, March 3rd. It's a free day, and the exhibit's going to be here for all up through the fall, I believe, Steve. But Sunday, March 3rd is the free day. The 51st state called Delta. Everybody hates us over there in Middle Tennessee and West Tennessee, so we're not anything like them at all. They're hillbillies and all that. We're Delta, we're farmers, we're agricultural. So what I say is we need to secede. So we'll take, this is the best idea. Everything west of the Tennessee River, we'll take in the Boot Hill, take eastern Arkansas, Crowley's Ridge, down to Ole Miss. We'll get Ole Miss and the casinos. We'll become Delta. And there's that whole area, you see. And see, there we are right there. There we are right there. We'll take that whole area. We call ourselves Delta. Boom. 51st state, 51 stars on the flag, 989898. It works, you see. Got it all worked out. We can make it elongated out and make it like the state of Tennessee license plate. I thank you for coming today. We're going to have a question and answers here in a minute. Let's go back up to, y'all want to vote for the 51st state of Delta?